Good evening, Jerry. Good evening, Baruch. Nice to see you. Today, Miriam may come in a little later if she happens to come in because she went out for the day with her brothers up to Mount Saint Sever. It was a beautiful day today. And, but I worked on the parasha. It's called Shabbat Para, and I'll be explaining a little bit about what that means. Para means the red heifer. So let me share the screen because every week I get excited when I read it. Let me share the screen and we'll begin to read. Okay. So Jerry, would you like to start reading? It starts from verse 11.
Pull it down.
And the Lord,
put it below my picture.
3, 2, 1, 0. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, when thou takest the sum of the children of Israel, according to their number, then shall they give every man a ransom for his soul unto the Lord. When thou numberest them, that there be no plague among them, when thou numberest them.
So here we have a verse where it says that when they take a census of the children of Israel. Oh, here's Miriam. Hi, Miriam. Welcome home. We just began, so you really didn't miss anything. We just started reading, so we haven't missed anything, okay?
Yes.
And it says when you take a census. Now, in the Torah, the only one who was allowed to ask for a census was God, for whatever reason. I have a feeling it's because when we counted our people, it was out of a sense of pride. And when God counted us, it had to do more with a sense of understanding that we were going to go to war. And because it says, when you count them, when you number them, that there shall be no plague. So there's certain things that would have caused a plague. And when I did a little research on that, and it says in 2 Samuel, the anger of the Lord burned against King David, against Israel, and he incited David against them by telling them to go and take a census. And it's also like that in 1 Chronicles. And there was another verse. Well, in this 1 Chronicles, it says that Satan, or the adversary, rose up against Israel and incited David to take a census. So in this case, the census, maybe it's a bit of a hoax. I'm sure that the rabbis have a wonderful explanation. And if you're more interested, you can look up why God did not want us to take a census. Okay, continue.
This they shall give every one that passeth among them that are numbered, half a shekel after the shekel of the sanctuary. The shekel is 20 gerah, half a shekel for an offering to the Lord. Everyone that passeth among them that are numbered from 20 years old and upward shall give the offering of the Lord. The rich shall not give more, and the poor shall not give less than the half shekel when they give the offering of the Lord, to make atonement for your souls.
So why do you think that everyone, it doesn't matter who, rich or poor, had to bring only a half shekel? Why do you think that is, Jer?
Well, the other thing is, I think we discussed that the last time. It's also for the counting of the people. So it also gives them a way of counting without counting the heads, you know?
Yes, but I think it goes a little deeper than that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's another one. Go ahead.
Because it says the rich shall not give more and the poor shall not give less. In my understanding, everybody's equal in God's eyes. He doesn't care whether you're rich or poor. We are all equal. We bring the same amount to make a covering. The word is translated atonement, but in Hebrew, the word is lekaper. Kaper is the same word as the kippah, the chuppah, the covering. God would cover our souls. There's always that idea that he has us covered.
I think also,
yes,
it's like saying that there's only one way to come before God. It's just bring yourself and bring a heart that wants to have a relationship with God, there are no multiple ways of doing things. Like it's very simple. The deep things of the world are for everyone, as you say, and there's not a different way of going.
Yeah, but in this case, it had nothing to do with the willingness of the heart. Everyone from 20 years old and up had to give this, would bring this offering. It wasn't those whose hearts were willing. That was different.
Okay.
This is more, has to do with the census, so that God knew how many, well, not that God knew, the people would know, because 20 years is when you entered the army. 20 years, they become an adult. And from 20 years up, everyone was to bring a half a shekel, not more, not less. And that's how they would count their men. Go ahead, Jim.
And thou shalt take the atonement money from the children of Israel, and shall appoint it for the service of the tent of meeting, that it may be a memorial for the children of Israel before the Lord, to make atonement for your souls. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, thou shalt also make a laver of brass, and the base thereof of brass, whereat to wash. And thou shalt put it between the tent of meeting and the altar, and thou shalt put water therein. And Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and feet thereat. When they go into the tent of meeting, they shall wash with water, that they die not. And when they come near to the altar to minister, to cause an offering made by fire to smoke unto the Lord. So they shall wash their hands and their feet, that they die not. And it shall be a statute for that forever to them, even to him and to his seed throughout their generations.
Now, it seems that it's a very strange thing to me that if they go into the tent of meeting, they need to wash with water, or else they would die. I mean, this seems pretty strict. But we're at the beginning of the establishment of the Kohanim, of these people who were specifically chosen to come to be the go-between. They would be in the presence of God inside this tabernacle, and they were to come clean. You know, when they were out in the desert, their feet were filthy. And remember, even Moses was told, take off your sandals, you're on holy ground. There's this sense that when you come before him, you come in the best way you can, clean to him. And this would be a statute forever.
Moreover, the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, take thou also unto thee the chief spices of flowing myrrh 500 shekels, and of sweet cinnamon half so much, even 250, and of sweet calamus 250, and of cassia 500, after the shekel of the sanctuary, and of olive oil a hin. And thou shalt make it a holy anointing oil, a perfume, compounded after the art of the perfumer. It shall be a holy anointing oil. And thou shalt anoint therewith the tent of meeting, and the ark of the testimony, and the table, and all the vessels thereof, and the candlestick, and the vessels thereof, and the altar of incense.
I want you to just notice something, because here it says, not only were the priests to be anointed, but here, to see the word for, in Hebrew, for anoint, mashachta, the same word as Mashiach, the same, when we take the word today, Christianity and modern and Orthodox Judaism has taken this idea of Mashiach and made it so grandiose, so much more than what the Torah is actually saying. It's anything that's anointed. Even Aaron was anointed. The King Saul was anointed. He was a terrible king. He was anointed. He wasn't a good Mashiach. So we have to slowly start to change our understanding about what these words mean, that they don't only mean this one savior who's going to come and save the world. There are many things that were not only people, but also the vessels that were inside the sanctuary.
And the altar of burnt offering with all the vessels thereof, and the laver and the base thereof. And thou shalt sanctify them, that they may be most holy. Whatsoever toucheth them shall be holy. And thou shalt anoint Aaron and his sons, and sanctify them, that they may minister unto me in the priest's office.
See, again, they were going to be Mashiach, Timshach, the same root, Aaron and his sons, and all these things would be set apart. When you see, it says holy, it's kadosh. These things were set apart for God. It's like when we have special dishes for Pesach, those dishes are set apart for a special occasion.
And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, this shall be a holy anointing oil unto me throughout your generations. Upon the flesh of man shall it not be poured, neither shall ye make any like it, according to the composition thereof. It is holy, and it shall be holy unto you. Whosoever compoundeth any like it, or whosoever putteth away any of it upon a stranger, he shall be cut off from his people.
So here, this specific oil, which was an anointing oil for the priests, he gave a recipe for it. Nobody else was to make it. Nobody else was to do it on their own, in their own way, and put it on anyone that we wanted to. God was showing us that there is an order to things, and that we need to keep the order the way he wants it, or we would be cut off from his people. If you cut off, there's so many people today who are cut off from Israel because they are disobedient. And you'll see later on, he talks about other types of things that cut us off from our own people. If you cut off a hand from the body, it dies. We need to be connected to our people and to our body and to God primarily.
And the Lord said unto Moses, take unto thee sweet spices, stacked, and ankia, and gabalnum, sweet spices with pure frankincense. Of each shall there be a like weight. And thou shalt make of it incense, a perfume after the art of the perfumer, seasoned with salt, pure and holy. And thou shalt beat some of it very small, and put of it before the testimony in the tent of meeting, where I will meet with thee. It shall be unto you most holy. And the incense which thou shalt make according to the composition thereof, you shall not make for yourselves. It shall be unto thee holy for the Lord. Whosoever shall make like unto that to smell thereof, he shall be cut off from his people.
Again, the same idea. God would set a place, set apart certain things that would be only designated for him. He was trying to get us away from this idea, this pagan idea that you could build altars anywhere, that you could make all these concoctions anywhere and everywhere, and that they would serve, and the pagans used them in a superstitious way, in a pagan way. God was switching our focus to just always be focused on him.
Can you imagine today if men just went around in cooler weather, let's say in autumn, wearing talit? You know, it's talit I set apart. You know, it's a way of coming before God and recognizing the spiritual and the physical and the intellectual components in the world.
Exactly.
Separating yourself. It's interesting.
Exactly. Miriam, you want to read a bit?
Okay. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, see, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. And I have filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom and in understanding and in knowledge and in all manner of workmanship, to devise skillful works, to work in gold and in silver and in brass, and in cutting of stones for setting, and in carving of wood, to work in all manner of workmanship.
So last week we had read about how other people were God filled them with the spirit of wisdom and understanding and knowledge in workmanship. These were craftsmen. These were given skills specifically by God to work in these things. Not everybody was called, but they specifically called Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, and of the tribe of Judah.
And I, behold, I have appointed with him Oholiab, the son of
Ahisamach.
Ahisamach of the tribe of Dan. And in the hearts of all that are wise-hearted, I have put wisdom, that they may make all that I have commanded make all that I have commanded thee. The tent of meeting and the ark of the testimony and the ark cover that is thereupon, and all the furniture of the tent, and the table and its vessels, and the pure candlestick with all its vessels, and the altar of incense, and the altar of burnt offering with all its vessels, and the laver and its base, and the plated garments, and the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and the garments of his sons to minister in the priest's office, and the anointing oil, and the incense of sweet spices for the holy place, according to all that I have commanded thee, shall they do. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying,
You want me to read,
thou,
Miriam? You okay? Can you continue?
Yeah, my breathing's, as you can hear, a little forced.
Okay.
I'll finish this. It's the end of the thing, no?
Okay.
At 14, you could speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, verily you shall keep my Shabbat, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am the Lord who sanctifies you.
Now, this is the first thing that we read after all these things are built into the Mishkan, all the garments, everything that was made. And the first thing that he tells us is to keep my Shabbats. And the reason, not because we have to rest from work, not because we're no longer slaves, it is a sign, ot, between him and us throughout all our generations, that we may know that he is the Lord who set us apart. That's the main issue about the Shabbat. It's a sign that he exists. His very existence is proven by the fact that there are the seventh day of the week.
That always hit me when it hit me for a long time, even when, I was coming to the congregation and going to Shabbat dinners and the keeping of Shabbat. And it only really hit home when I read this and it sunk in. The idea that it has nothing to do with work or things like that. Because, you can take a day off anytime. It's not just a day off.
Exactly.
It's a sign, as you say, of his very being and existence.
Exactly.
It's a supernatural, it's a declaration that, hey, I am here. I created you. I love it.
And this is the fourth commandment. And God wants us to obey his commandments. Here, continue. Go ahead, Miriam.
Sorry.
You're on.
Yeah, okay. You that keep the Shabbat.
You shall keep.
Oh, sorry. You shall keep the Shabbat, therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that profanes it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever does any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people.
I mean, this is powerful. We have to keep the Shabbat, or literally, I don't believe that it's a physical death, although a physical death can come out of being disobedient to God. It's not an immediate death, but as I said, when we are cut off from among his people, especially at that time, if we were cut off from the tribes and had to go outside the camp, it's like a death sentence. But here, when we're cut off from our people, we are lost. And we see how our people are so lost today in so many ways, so many areas in their lives. Go ahead. You're still on mute, Miriam.
Thought you were going to read again. Okay. I'll read a bit more than that. 6 days shall 6 days shall work be done. But on the seventh day, on the seventh day is a Shabbat of solemn rest, holy to the Lord. Whosoever does any work in the Shabbat day, he shall surely be put to death.
Now, this line here, who does any work? The word for work is melacha. Melacha comes from the same root as melach, which means salt. And in those days, it was a commodity. They would trade. People would be paid in salt. This is where we get the word salary. God does not want anyone to earn a salary on his day. He set it apart for everyone in the entire world. That's why it's in the fourth commandment. You want to continue, Miriam?
Mhm. It is a sign between me.
No. Wherefore the children.
Oh, well,
16.
wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Shabbat, to observe the Shabbat throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and the seventh day he ceased from work and rested.
Exactly.
And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of speaking with him upon Mount Sinai, the 2 tablets of the testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God.
So if anyone doubts, of course, you have to believe the Torah is really from God. But he gave to Moses the 2 tablets of stone written by his own finger. Of course, this is an anthropomorphism. God doesn't have a finger. He doesn't have a face. He doesn't have a back. But it's not written by Moses. It's written with the finger of God.
In every culture, and any idea of there being something bigger than all of us is something that cannot be a thing that's relative. Like morality, you can't say, well, for me, this is moral, but for you, maybe you think differently. But this is showing that morality comes from a higher source. The idea of good and evil cannot just be individual subjective experiences. Then you could say to somebody else, well, for you, it's okay to murder your, let's say, throw your daughters into the river when they're born. But for me, it's not. But there's only one moral code, and it can only come from a higher power, from God.
Exactly.
It's an absolute moral truth.
Well, that's why you'll hear so many people saying, this is my truth, or this is your truth. Yeah. Well, there is no such thing.
No.
You may believe that it's the truth for you, but it is not the ultimate truth, which can only be given by the creator of the universe.
Yeah, it's beyond anything, our personal taste or our subjective experience.
Exactly. Now we're on chapter 32. And when the people saw that Moses delayed in coming down from the mount, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Get up, make us a god who shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what's become of him." And Aaron said to them, "Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." And all the people took off the golden earrings.
Just Peggy, one thing. I used to glide over this thing. It says, and Aaron said.
Aaron said, yes.
Aaron said this.
Exactly.
It's like, it hit me like a gong. I said, my God.
Aaron told, exactly. That's why he did, when he denied it later, it just wasn't true. He changed. He was a peacemaker. He was trying to look in a good light. Like they say, you can't dance at 2 weddings. You have to be clear with what you're saying. And
unless he was worn down himself. Maybe he had his own doubts.
Well, God didn't leave him alone. He was there with Hur and the others and the other leaders. But Aaron,
I know, but maybe he was like wondering what's going on. Like, well, anyway, whatever. You're right.
Well, he was. You know, this verse here, chapter 32, I just want to show you something. Because if you go to chapter, hold on a second, let me go down. Chapter 24, okay? And we go to the end of chapter 24. Here, God is speaking to Moses. Moses is Moses is heading up onto Mount Sinai. The Lord said to Moses, come up to the mount, and I will give you tablets of stone, which I have written, that you may teach them. And Moses rose up with Joshua, his minister, and Moses went up to the mount of God. You notice that Moses and Joshua both went up. He didn't go alone. You don't hear much, but Joshua was there with him.
Okay.
I doubt if he left him halfway up, because he was there for 40 days and 40 nights.
Yeah.
And Joshua was also in the tent of meeting with him. He would remain in the tent and speak with God. Joshua was being prepared very quietly, but you see this in the background. So Moses went up on the mount, and the glory of the Lord abode on Mount Sinai, and the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire. And Moses entered into the midst of the cloud and went up the mount, and Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. That's how 24 ends. If you go to 25, all of a sudden they're building a Mishkan. That's why we know, because if we go back to 32 now, so this is 24, now we're going to 32, and then it continues. So all the verses in between have to do with the Mishkan. And what God is showing us is that this idea of the Mishkan would be in the center, that would cover the people for the sin of the golden calf, of what they did. But that shows us that it's not chronological. We are looking at a bigger picture, and you have to stand back to take a look at it. So when the people saw Moses delayed, he tells Aaron, he saw that Moses, they tell Aaron, make us a god, okay? And Aaron said to them, okay, I'll make you a god, bring the earrings. And all the people broke off their earrings, which were in their ears, and brought them to Aaron. And he took them from their hands, and he fashioned it with a graving tool, and he made a golden calf, a molten calf. It's very clear, he made it. And the people said, this is your God, O Israel, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. Imagine, after everything they'd been through, now they're attributing it to this golden calf.
But Aaron doesn't, even then he doesn't say anything.
He doesn't say. And when Aaron saw this, not only did he not say anything, he built an altar.
I think it's more than just appeasing the people. I think he had a kind of an experience that many people have gone through, a doubting experience, or he was, caught up in a.
Well, remember, his brother was gone for a month and a half.
Yeah, I'm not justifying or not.
No, but I'm saying you have to think of what was going on there. These people had just left Egypt. They were in the second or third month, and they were at the mountain. They heard God. They'd been through all that, but all of a sudden their fearless leader is gone. They thought maybe he was killed. He went up in the fire. They didn't know what happened to him. And Aaron himself probably wasn't sure. Remember, Aaron wasn't the one who heard directly from God. Moses did.
Right.
Aaron followed him. Even now, even Moses was doing a lot of these things you're going to see. He was obeying God. He wasn't necessarily doing it because he himself was so convinced, because right now he was still upset with the people. They had rejected him. They had given him up in Egypt. Remember, they had given him up to Pharaoh, and he had to run away, and he lived in the Midianites. He didn't care about these people, but he's doing it because God told him to do it.
Right.
And Aaron, the same thing. We are so human.
Well, here I'm really seeing a human side of Aaron. I think he's having a faith experience, he's wondering what's going on here.
Exactly, like we
and
all
also
have
they knew
to.
the gods in Egypt. You say, well, they did it there. Maybe we could do one here.
Exactly, and who was going to take them back to Egypt? Were they going to stay here at Mount Sinai if Moses didn't come back?
Right.
So Aaron made a proclamation. He made an altar, and he made a proclamation: tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early in the morning, and they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink, and they rose up to make merry. And the Lord said to Moses, you better get down, For your people who you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned quickly aside from the way which I commanded them. They have made a molten calf, and they've worshipped it, and have sacrificed to it, and said, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." And the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, they are keshech oref. They are stiff-necked. That's who we are, a stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone, because my anger is burning against them, and I'm going to consume them. And I will make from you a goy gadol, a great nation. So he was going to make another nation. And Moses begged the Lord, his God, and said, Lord, why are you burning your anger against your people, who you have brought out of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, because of evil did he bring them forth, to slay them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? I beg you, turn from your fierce anger and change your mind. Repent of this evil against your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and here he's using Israel, not Jacob. He's using Israel, who would be the future people, the future nation. Your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, I will multiply your seed of the stars of heaven. Remember, he promised that to Abraham. And all this land that I've spoken of, I will give to your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. Then it says, and the Lord repented of the evil which he said he would do to this people. Now, do you really think that Moses could make the Lord change his mind?
Nope.
Nope. What he was doing was he was showing Moses, who never, if you look at the dialogues up to now, you're always going to see Moses saying, your people, these are your people, they're making me crazy. And God would say to him, no, they're your people. So it was also always this banter back and forth between God and Moses about whose people there are. And finally, Moses is appropriating the people as himself. And look what he continues to say. And Moses turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, the tablets that were written on both their sides. On the one side and on the other were they written. And the tablets, listen, if anyone does not believe these were from God, the tablets were the work of God. And the writing was the writing of God engraved upon the tablets. People can say they were from Moses. They could say he was a wise man. But here it says very explicitly, and if anybody doesn't like it, it means they don't trust in the Torah, and they themselves can't be trusted. Now Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, and he said to Moses, there's a noise of war in the camp. So they were together up there. And he said, it is not the voice of them that shouts for mastery, neither it is the voice of them that cry for being overcome, but it's the noise of them who are singing that I hear. And it came to pass, as soon as he came near to the camp, and he saw the calf and the dancing, that Moses' anger, it wasn't God who was angry now. Moses was really upset. He waxed hot, and he threw down the tablets out of his hand, and he broke them beneath the mountain. And he took the calf which he had made, and he burnt it, he melted it down with fire, and he ground it to a powder, and he put it in water, and he made the children of Israel drink it. That's how upset he was. And this reminds us of a future time in the book of Numbers, when a man, it's called the sotah. Now this calf, remember, is the red heifer. Okay, so the ashes of the red heifer also were taken at the time of the sotah in the book of Numbers, where it says, if a man grew jealous and suspected that his wife was cheating on him, he would take her to the Kohen HaGadol, the high priest, who would make a concoction. He would take the ashes of the red heifer, just like here. He would mix it up, and the woman grind it to powder, and the woman would drink it. And they said if she was guilty, her belly would blow up and her thighs would become big and she would not be able to have children anymore. So if she was, now this was like a Baba Maisa, because it wasn't true. If really she was guilty, she wouldn't want to drink it because she would be so afraid. Remember, our people were very superstitious. They still are today. I know so many superstitious people. So this is pointing to that which would happen a little in the future. And Moses said to Aaron, what did this people say to you, that you have brought such a great sin upon them? Now, here's where he makes the excuse. It's so beautiful. Aaron is so human. Don't let
my favorite.
Don't let the anger of my Lord. Don't be angry. You know the people. You know how they are and how evil they're set upon doing evil. And they said to me, make us a God which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him. So I said to them, whoever has any gold, let him break it off. So far, so good. So they gave it to me. And I cast it into the fire, and poof, out came a calf. I mean, honestly.
I used to think, when I first started reading the Bible at all, everything was so solemn and so serious.
It's such a sense of humor.
Cross-eyed reading it. I was so shocked when I read this. It's like it's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Out jumped a calf.
Out jumped a calf. It goes to show us how human he was. And yet, this man was chosen by God to be the Kohen HaGadol, the first in the lineage of the high priests of Israel. How is this possible?
This gives me such, such
hope.
A wonderful, it's just a wonderful way to see yourself in the world, because God takes a man who does something like that, and still has gone beyond all that to see really deep down what kind of heart he has.
Exactly.
We all do things. I've done things I'm so ashamed of it, and yet, God could pierce through the layers and see, what's really, really, really in my heart. Exactly.
And the one who has been forgiven more is more humbled. I mean, if a man borrows $1 million from somebody, and another man comes and borrows $20 from the same man, and the man is very generous, and he says to the guy with the $20, you know what? You don't have to pay me back. It's okay. And the man is very grateful. It's $20, But the man, when he goes to the man who owed him $1 million, and he says to him, you know what? Forget it. You're forgiven the loan. You can keep it. Can you imagine how that man would feel?
Yeah.
I mean, the more you sin and the more you've been forgiven, the more humble we are. And he was going to be put in a position where he would be the servant of the people. And he needed to be humble, because if you're always looking out for your own interests, you don't care about others. And God, he knew Aaron's heart. And that's why he allowed. But Aaron would pay for that later when his first 2 sons were killed. We don't get away with anything. When Moses saw that the people had broken loose, for Aaron had let them loose for a derision among their enemies. I mean, they had gone crazy. Who knows what kind of pagan rituals they were doing and what they had seen in Egypt. And they were bringing it there right at the base of Mount Sinai. Then Moses stood at the gate of the camp and said, whoever is on the Lord's side, let him come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together to him. Now remember who Levi was. Levi and Simeon were the two brothers who went and murdered all that whole village who had where the young man had raped their sister Dinah. These were warriors. Levi was a warrior, and they were going to be the Levites serving in the temple. And he said to them, "This is what the Lord God of Israel said: you take every man your sword upon his thigh, and you go to and fro in the camp, from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his friend, his companion, and every man his neighbor." Now, if you read the Midrashim and in the Talmud, they try to whitewash Aaron and they whitewash Israel. They say it was the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude, who incited the Jews, the Israelites, to do these things. But that's not what this says. It says you're going to kill your own brothers, your own companions, your own neighbors. It was the rabble rousers. It may not have been everybody, but it certainly was a group. And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and that day 3,000 men were killed. You know, when we see people being killed, even today in Israel, when we see the horrible things happening, we have to look at our own behavior. What are we doing that is inciting God to allow this to happen among us? It's easy to blame everybody else. We need to look within. And Moses said, consecrate yourself, set yourselves apart, make yourself holy to the Lord. For every man has been against his son and against his brother, that he may also bestow upon you a blessing this day. And it came to pass the next day that Moses said to the people, you have sinned a great sin. And now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can cover this sin for you. Perhaps I can do something to appease the anger of God. And Moses returned to the Lord and said, oh, this people have sinned a great sin and have made a god of gold. Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, so he's begging God, please forgive their sin. But if not, now listen carefully, if not, blot me, I beg you, out of your book which you have written. Here's Moses saying to God, take my name out of your book that we go before him on the Yom Kippur. Take my name out. And the Lord said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, he's the one I will blot out of my book. He didn't allow Moses to take the sin for anybody else. And today we have a whole religion that says there was a man who died for the sins of the people. Well, the only way you could say that, and that's Christianity, and they say that's what Jesus Christ did. He died to pay for your sins. But that's not what the Torah says. The Torah says, whoever sinned against me, he's the one. We are all accountable and all responsible for our own sins. And the only way that they could make that valid in Christianity is to throw out the Torah, because otherwise it's impossible that we could believe that. Now go, lead the people to the place that I've spoken to you, and my angel will go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. So here it's like, it's like he's saying, like when a mother says to the child, you wait till your father comes home. Here you're going to get it. Here, that's what he's saying. In the day I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. So they knew something was coming, but they didn't know what. And the Lord smote the people because they made the calf which Aaron made. So they 3,000 died that day.
And yet, not one of us could know and look into the hearts of these people. Yet Aaron, a leader who had, to those whom a lot is given, a lot is expected, one of the leaders, and he himself is not killed. So there's something in the people who did this, had a very let's say dark hearts or whatever. There was no, let's say
Exactly. Their intentions. God knew the intentions of their heart.
yeah.
Okay. Jerry, would you like to continue to read?
And the Lord spoke unto Moses, depart, go up hence, thou and the people that thou hast brought up out of the land of Egypt, unto the land of which I swore unto Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, unto thy seed will I give it. And I will send an angel before thee, and I will drive out the Canaanite, the Amorite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. For I will not go up in the midst of thee, for thou art a stiff-necked people, lest I consume thee in the way.
So you see, the land that he was giving us was not empty. There were Canaanites, Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites. When people today say that this land belongs to them, it doesn't. It belongs to God, even though there were people living there. But all these were pagan. They had pagan rituals, and God wanted them out of the land.
And when the people heard these evil tidings, they mourned, and no man did put on him his ornaments.
So what were the evil tidings? What he had said in the last verse of the last chapter. They knew that something was coming, and they were scared. You know, when you know daddy's coming home and you're going to be in trouble, you cry. And they weren't, no more. They took off their ornaments. They weren't dancing anymore.
And the Lord said unto Moses, say unto the children of Israel, ye are a stiff-necked people. If I go up into the midst of thee for one moment, I shall consume thee. Therefore now put off thy ornaments from thee, that I may know what to do unto thee. And the children of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments from Mount Horeb onward. Now Moses used to take the tent and to pitch it without the camp, afar off from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And it came to pass that everyone that sought the Lord went out unto the tent of meeting, which was without the camp.
So it was outside the camp at this point, the tent of meeting, and anybody who wanted to seek the Lord, Moses would pitch it outside the camp, and he would stay there and meet the people.
And it came to pass, when Moses went out into the tent, that all the people rose up and stood, every man at his tent door, and looked after Moses until he was gone into the tent. And it came to pass, when Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud descended and stood at the door of the tent, and the Lord spoke with Moses.
I mean, this is unbelievable when you think of it. Moses goes in, a cloud descends, stands at the door, and so nobody really can come in, and the Lord is speaking with Moses.
And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud stand at the door of the tent, all the people rose up and worshipped, every man at his tent door. And the Lord spoke unto Moses face to face, as a man speaketh unto his friend. And he would return into the camp, but his minister Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, departed not out of the tent.
So we see Joshua was there inside the tent with Moses, and Moses left, went out, and Joshua stayed inside the tent.
And Moses said unto the Lord, see, thou sayest unto me, bring up this people, and thou hast not let me know whom thou wilt send with me. Yet thou hast said, I know thee by name, and thou hast also found grace in my sight. Now, therefore, I pray thee, if I have found grace in thy sight, show me now thy ways, that I may know thee, to the end that I might find grace in thy sight, and consider that this nation is thy people.
You know, these are very important things for us to read, because we can do this today. We have the ability, those of us who know that we are known by our God, we can go to God and say, if I find grace in your sight, show me your ways that I may know you. And the result being that I find chesed, mercy, rachamim in your sight, and that I belong to this nation, my people.
And he said, my presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest. And he said unto him, if thy presence go not with me, carry us not up hence. For wherewith now shall it be known that I have found grace in thy sight, I and thy people? Is it not in that thou goest with us, so that we are distinguished, I and thy people, from all the people that are upon the face of the earth?
This is so important. This is the only thing that distinguishes us as a people, as a nation, is that God is going with us wherever we go. Otherwise, we're like any of the other nations. That's the only way that we could be a light, because God has made us light when we walk in his statutes, his ordinances, commandments. That these things have not changed. The principles are still the same.
And the Lord said unto Moses, I will do this thing also that thou hast spoken, for thou hast found grace in my sight, and I know thee by name.
I mean, isn't that marvelous? God knows Moses by name. When you name a person, like when somebody says Jerry Lipstein, I know who he's talking about. God knows your name. God knows Miriam's name. God knows my name. The president of the United States doesn't know my name, but the creator of the universe knows my name. How grand is that?
And he said, show me, I pray thee, thy glory. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before thee, and will proclaim the name of the Lord before thee. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. And he said, thou canst not see my face, for man shall not see me and live.
So really what he's saying is that we don't always know why he's gracious to someone. He was gracious to Aaron. He decides who he's going to show mercy to and who he's going to be gracious to. He's the one, because he knows the heart of the human. We don't know what goes on within the soul of another human being.
And the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me, and thou shalt stand upon the rock. And it shall come to pass, while my glory passeth by, that I will put thee in a cleft of the rock, and I will cover thee with my hand until I have passed by. And I will take away my hand, and thou shalt see my back, but my face shall not be seen.
This is an idiomatic expression. The understanding here, because God does not have a back. He does not have a face. He's ethereal. He's spirit. Why do you think we wanted to make a God that we could see and touch? It's very difficult to believe in something that you cannot see. But he's showing us that he's a God of action and that he's going to be with us. Here it says, you shall see my back. In other words, you shall see the things, you shall look at what's happened in the past and know that I'm with you and know all the things that I've done for you so you can trust me. But my face, which looks forward, I'm not going to show you the future. I'm going to show you the past. I'm going to show you now what I'm doing for you. You have to trust me because of what has already happened in life, not because of what could be, but what is and what has been. And the Lord said to Moses, hew two more tablets of stone like the first, and I will write upon the tablets of stone the same things, the words that were on the first, which you broke. And be ready in the morning, and come up in the morning to Mount Sinai, and present yourself there to me at the top of the mountain. No man shall come up with you. Don't let any man be seen throughout all the mountain. Don't let the flocks or the herds feed in front of that mountain. And he hewed 2 tablets of stone like the first. And Moses rose up early in the morning and went up Mount Sinai as the Lord had commanded him, and took in his hand 2 tablets of stone. And the Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed his name, Yud He Vav He. Moses knew how to pronounce Yud He Vav He. And the Lord passed by before him and proclaimed, Yud He Vav He, Yud He Vav He, El, Rachamim, and gracious, Vechen, long-suffering, and abundant in goodness and truth. This is who our God is. I hear people saying the God of the Old Testament is a harsh God who was murderous and vengeful. That's not who he is. The Lord is merciful and gracious and long-suffering and abundant. But the God of the New Testament is all these things. No, that's not what the Torah says. Keeping mercy unto the 1000th generation, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, and upon the children's children unto the 3rd and 4th generation. In other words, the generations are going to pay for the sins of the generations that came before, but only, it says, to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who continue to be to sin. But for those who love him, to keeping mercy, he will show his mercy to the 1000th generation, which means forever. So those who continue to be guilty, they will visit it upon their children. But we, those who love him, and he's going to show mercy and forgive us when we go to him and we ask for our transgressions and our sins to be cleared, he will do that. And Moses made haste and bowed his head towards the earth, vayishtachavu, and he worshipped. And he said, if now I have found favor, chen, in your sight, in your eyes, O Lord, let the Lord, I beg you, go in the midst of us, for this is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us as your inheritance. And he said, behold, I make a covenant. Before all your people, I will do marvels, such as not been seen in all the earth, not has been done in all the earth, nor in any other nation. And all the people among whom who are with you shall see the work of the Lord that I am about to do. It is tremendous. These are the things that he's going to be doing with us as we travel, and everyone around us is going to know. Observe what I'm commanding you this day. Be faithful, obey, shema, shemor, guard. Behold, I'm driving out the Amorite and the Canaanite and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusites. And today we could say, if we would only be observant, and I'm not talking about religious, if we would observe his commandments with all our heart and our soul and our might, he would drive out all the enemies that are fighting against us in Iran, in Syria, in Iraq, in the Palestinians, all those people who are standing up and fighting against us. He would go out and do battle for us. Take heed, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where you are going, lest they be a snare in the midst of you. Look what's happening in Jerusalem today. How many Jews are being killed in East Jerusalem by those inhabitants who have become a snare among us. He says, don't make a covenant with them. Break down their altars, dash into pieces their pillars, cut down their asherim, for you shall bow down to no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous. He's not jealous like us. He's zealous for his name's sake. He is a jealous God. If you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go astray after their gods and sacrifice to their gods, and they call you, and you eat of their sacrifices, and you marry their daughters to your sons, and you take their daughters who will take you astray after their gods, and make your sons go astray after their gods. Do not make any golden idols. My rabbi was telling us that he was in Israel a long time ago, and he was in a taxi, and he was talking to the man about, they got into the conversation about God. And he says, I can't believe all these things that I'm seeing here. I don't even recognize Israel anymore. Every time I come here, there's something new. And the taxi driver just looked at him. He says, yeah, we're still worshiping the golden calf. And the next thing we see, Pesach, the feast of unleavened bread you shall keep. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread, as I command you at the time appointed in the month of Aviv. In the month of Aviv, you came out of Egypt. This is the first month for us. Now, how many of our people eat bread on Pesach? And it's not so much about the eating of the bread, it's the intention. They don't care about God and what he's given us. All who opens the womb is mine. This is the Pidyon Haben, the first son, the firstborn son belongs to God. All the cattle, sanctify the males, the first of the ox and the sheep, the first of the donkey, you shall redeem with a lamb. And if you'll not redeem it, break its neck. All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and no one shall appear before me empty-handed. Like when you go to somebody's home and they invite you for a meal, you bring them something. You bring a good bottle of wine or a nice bouquet of flowers, or you make a cake. You always bring something before you come before the Lord, the best of what you have. 6 days shall you work, again the Shabbat, but on the 7th day you shall rest. In plowing time and in harvest you shall rest. You shall observe the Feast of Weeks, this is Shavuot, even the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering, which is Sukkot, at the turn of the year. So we have Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. 3 times in the year shall all your males appear before the Lord God of Israel. How many of us travel to Jerusalem for those 3 holidays to celebrate Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot? For I will cast out nations from before you, and I will enlarge your borders, and no man shall covet your land when you go up to appear before the Lord thy God 3 times in the year. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread. Don't bring me sacrifices at that time with regular bread. Neither shall the sacrifice of the feast of the Pesach be left till morning. The choicest first fruits of your land you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. And here again, he's speaking against paganism. You shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk. Nothing to do with not eating milk and meat. It has to do with a fertility rite of the pagans. Do not boil a kid in its mother's milk as a pagan ritual so that she could become fertile. And the Lord said to Moses, write these words, for after the tenor of these words, I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. And he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate bread nor drank water for 40 days and 40 nights. How is it possible? Unless the Lord was sustaining him. And he wrote upon the tablets, again, the words of the covenant, the 10 words, the 10 devarim, aseret ha-divarim, the 10 commandments. And when it came to pass, when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mountain, Moses did not know, look at this, Moses did not know that the skin of his face sent forth beams while he talked with the people. Well, no, while God was talking with Moses, his face was shining. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face sent forth beams, and they were afraid to come near him. And Moses called them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation, they turned to him, and Moses spoke to them. And afterward, all the children of Israel approached him, and he gave them in commandment all that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. And when Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. But when Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he took the veil off until he came out. And he came out and spoke to the children of Israel all that God had commanded him. And the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face sent forth beams, and Moses put the veil back on his face until he went in to speak with him. And we see that there's these statues that I've seen of Moses where you see beams of light, and people say that those are horns, but those were beams of light that were coming from his head, from his face. Can you imagine? And it's interesting because there have been times, and it's not to boast because it has nothing to do with me, that people are saying, wow, you look so light. You look radiant. And it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with really basking in God and being obedient to him. There's something that happens to us. We step into another plane, another level, where it's like we're living in eternity, and it's absolutely marvelous. And there's nothing that could compare. And the reason that this world is going through all the stuff that it's going through is because it's thrown out the commandments written by hand of God, by the finger of God, and we need to bring them back. I don't know how we're going to do that. I'm doing my part. By doing this, we are doing our part by having these weekly sessions so that people can see what God is actually saying. The rest is up to God to open their hearts. And that's what I pray. I pray that God would do that and that he would do it very quickly. I know it was a long session, and we can, if there's anything else you want to add, otherwise we can finish with the Aaronic benediction.
I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. When Aaron asked them to tear off their earrings, I always wondered that maybe by him asking to tear off their earrings, they would refuse to do it, to give away their earrings, and that would sort of stop them from going ahead. That was just one question. That was like a stumbling for the people. Well, if you wanted to tear off your earrings, so I'm not sure. That's one question.
Possible. It's
Anyhow,
possible.
yeah.
But you see, I'm sure not everybody came and brought. I'm sure not everybody instigated Aaron to make the god. But what did everybody else do? You see, when there is evil going on around us and we do nothing to speak against it, when we don't stop it, where were all the other people saying, don't do that? We need to wait for Moses. We need to speak up. So it doesn't say that, Jared. We don't know.
No, just a question. On the other hand, and not to use another example, I was reading a story of Julius Caesar, where Brutus and some senators killed Julius Caesar, and Mark Antony was with Julius Caesar. Now, to get the crowd on his side, he didn't immediately say that Brutus was wrong. He went like sort of seemingly with the crowd, like against Brutus, to start to get their confidence. And slowly he talked in that maybe Brutus was wrong. And finally, they went with Mark Antony. And so, in other words, I'm not taking the example from Julius Caesar for the Torah, but it's similarly, if you want to get someone and you have the opposite opinion, you can't just jump on them opposite. You have to gain their confidence first. So Aaron could have been forced to gain their confidence. He could have done that to keep the confidence of the people. If you would have jumped against them immediately, he wouldn't have been able to keep them there,
Well, to me, Aaron was a very good politician. That's what my rabbi would say. He was a good politician, telling people what they wanted to hear. That's what they do.
Okay, so that's possible, but who knows? We weren't there, and even if we were there, we wouldn't know it's in Aaron's heart.
Except that they give us enough information that we could see, but we know that his heart was not evil because God didn't kill him.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing was, it seemingly later on.
You're on mute, Miriam, if you wanted to say something.
Later on,
I'm just saying that's important, that Aaron wasn't killed, and that doesn't spell out in exact detail, but we can glean from this that he wasn't killed because God knew his heart. Even though what he did was even worse as a leader, not only the others followed, but he led it. He suggested, bring your jewelry to the, I always wondered, like, why is he? But anyway, God knows our hearts.
Yeah, but he also, the death of children is a horrible thing. And he lost his 2 first sons. That is almost worse than losing your own life. I mean, he suffered. He did suffer.
Yeah, no, he did suffer. But
Yeah.
Could we say that was because of the? I mean, it could be.
It could very well be. What kind of an example was he giving to his first 2 sons who would take over the priesthood from him? He was doing,
Yeah.
I know,
but I think it's showing here that we don't know always the hearts of. We see that in life all the time.
Yeah.
People who may appear more evil than others are not necessarily. What Hannah Arendt always said, the writer philosopher, the banality of evil. She said, so some of the Nazis, they look like your own uncle.
Exactly.
Committed atrocities. We just don't always know what's in the heart of a person.
No, exactly. And there's some people who come across as being so sweet and loving and kind, on the outside, but who knows what's going on the inside. And somebody else who comes across as very, very tough and very strong, and yet they do so many good things. So
it reminds me of the movie, I think it was the Boston Strangler, where you see this at one point a really roguish man, kind of a rough and ready. He just looked like a sleazy whatever, but he wasn't the Boston Strangler. Everyone thinks it was him. Yeah. Then it was this quiet sort of mouse of a man.
Yeah.
Nobody would really.
Exactly. Don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some rabbis write stuff. I don't know if you heard of the Tanya, where they say that humans, we have there's an evil inclination that we have to subdue.
Yes, well, that's what they call when the Torah talks about, or the Bible talks about Satan. Christianity has made that into the devil, but in Judaism, Satan is the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination within us, the adversary, something or somebody who would stir us to do wrong things.
And unfortunately, one may not appreciate something good if they did not have something to compare it with, which is not good. So
exactly.
So we have to have that opposite to appreciate certain things,
Absolutely.
Even life itself, one would not necessarily appreciate it as much if there was no death. So we have to have that to appreciate it. It's unfortunate that we need that. The other thing was, while the last time it seemed that Joshua was in the tent of meeting with Moses, I had the idea previously that Moses went up to the mountain and Joshua was at the base of the mountain and the rest of the people were in the camp. Now that could have been from a movie. So my understanding was Joshua was not up in the mountain with him, but he was at the base of the mountain with him. If we did that early on in the Sedra. I didn't want to interrupt at that time. Anyhow, if you're ready, we'll go.
Yeah. But let me just, there was something that I had seen there. Hold on. It says here, hold on.
Me?
Yes, I hear you, but you were making, it was making a noise, Brian. That's why I turned it off.
That noise.
Yeah, it's not, it's a very staticky kind of noise again. So I'm turning it off because it sounds bad. Yeah, because it says when Joshua heard the noise of the people, he said to Moses, there's war in the camp. So where was Joshua? Moses arose with his assistant Joshua, and Moses went up to the mountain. It doesn't say they both. And he said to the elder, wait here for us until we come back to you.
Doesn't it say somewhere previously that Joshua and Moses went up to the mountain?
Yes, it does. No,
but you see, sorry to interrupt, but you see, it's Joshua was able to hear the people in the camp. So that means he was closer possibly to the camp than Moses. He was in between Moses and the camp at the base of the mountain. Because Joshua, you just said that, Peggy, that Joshua alerted Moses, right? So that means
it's true.
He was closer to the camp, which fits in with what I said. But what I said was could have been just from a movie that I could have seen. But now it seems to fit in.
Yeah, it's true. To tell you the truth, it's not clear. You have to kind of, I honestly, I don't know.
But it's clarified that it says if Joshua alerted Moses that there's noise in the camp, which you just read, I think that I understand what you said. So Joshua was more in earshot with the camp than Moses.
But I don't know how he could have stayed up halfway up the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights without.
So Joshua
Yeah.
could have been at the base of the mountain.
Maybe.
And not necessarily stay there for the full 40 days. Could have go back and forth to the camp.
Very true. Very true.
And you will have to, okay. So.
Okay, you ready for the.
May it be thy will, Lord our God and God of our fathers, that the blessings which thou hast commanded the Kohanim to pronounce upon thy people Israel may be a perfect blessing, forever free from stumbling and iniquity. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'kdushosoi shel Aaron v'tzivonu levarech et amo Yisrael ve'ahavo. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmorecha. Yo'er Adonai ponav elecha v'chuneka. Yisro Adonai ponav elecha ve'yosem lecha shalom.
May the Lord bless.
V'samu et shemi el b'nei Yisrael va'ani arvorchem.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you shalom. So shall they put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. And
amen, 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 and amen.
Amen, amen, amen. May he bless us. May he bless us. So thank you again, everybody. Brian, it's still making that terrible noise. I'm going to mute you. Thank you, everybody, for your input. And I pray for all those who are watching that really, if you have comments or questions about what we say, we are always open, but read the Torah. It speaks for itself. You can go as deep as you want, but the basics are there. And the Torah is, it says, from Zion will come forth the Torah from Jerusalem, and it'll go out to all the ends of the earth. And that's my prayer and my wish, and that's why we do this. So anyway, have a wonderful rest of the evening. Sleep well. Have a rest of the week, and I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. And we'll see you again, God willing, next week when we read. What is it next week? Oh, a double portion, Vayachel Pekudei. That's going to be a long one, so I'll try to shorten it if I can. Good night, everybody.
Right, thank
God
you.
bless you all.